Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. Welcome back to the test server. And today it's the second video on Newt. The first one we did an early game look. We didn't have him booked. We had him in weaker gear. Well, things have changed for this video. He is booked up and he is good to go with a fairly endgame build. I'm not saying, by the way, that this is the best build. Certainly not. But my goal in this video is to sort of give you an idea of the sorts of things that Newt is going to be able to do for you. Because I think one of the biggest challenges you're going to see, this champion is insanely strong in so many different areas of the game. So it's trying to find a build that's going to work in every single area, or else maybe picking just one or two of those and being able to focus the build in more. I think there's a lot of interesting things there. But just to recap, in case you don't know, his A1 triple hitter decreasing turn meter. Now, one of the big things we're going to be using here is each hit placing a freeze. That's going to be so good for Fire Knight Hard, where freeze debuffs actually push back the turn meter. In fact, it's the only way to push back the turn meter of Fire Knight Hard. His A2 is an AoE with decreased attack weaken that puts counter attack on himself. And then his A3, this move is so insanely good because it's an enemy max HP hit and it's a triple hitter. So it is the biggest enemy max HP single target hit in the game. It is literally the best one. It's the best. On top of that, it also permanently decreases the target's defense, which is insane. Counter attacks do a bit more damage. Not a big deal, really. And then the accuracy in Dungeons Aura, we saw that was absolutely crucial for our early game look at Newt. Not going to be so important here in the late game, of course. So for his build, basically what I've done, I've given him perception and speed. We're trying to crank his speed and his accuracy pretty high. So I've got him at 272 speed. So we want him to be really, really quick and obviously have enough accuracy to keep that control up on Fire Knight Hard, to go into the spider team we're going to see. It's just going to be generally useful. You may not need quite this much, but I think you're certainly most likely building him with over 250 speed. Good defense then for some damage. Crit rate, obviously 100%. As much crit damage as you can. And like I said, the requisite accuracy. You'll see when we come to Hydra that maybe building some resistance would be a good idea as well, right? Because he gives himself counterattack. He does become something of a mischief target. So it's possible you're going to want to crank his resistance up too. We'll see. So broadly speaking, we've got crit damage gloves here, defense percent on the chest. You could give him accuracy or resistance if you wanted, speed on the boots, and yeah, crit damage necklace, defense ring. We actually got a nice ring there, and accuracy on the banner. Pretty straightforward. For his masteries, haven't really changed, right? We're still extending his debuffs. We still have Giant Slayer because he has those triple hits. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's go. So part of the reason I have him so fast is for Spider 10. So just to show this off for you guys going in, I've showed this before. I've used a Cold Heart before in the fastest spot, but Newt obviously is better because he hits 3 times. Right, so Newt is the fastest. He goes in with his Blessed Bash. Bang, bang, bang. We need someone to be faster than our burner. The burner comes in. We get the AoE burns out. We explode the burns once. We explode the burns twice. And job done. 4 turns. This would be faster. It'd be probably 10 seconds, maybe not quite 10 seconds. That might have been, maybe it was, if you're running unlimited frames and you weren't recording a video. But yeah, this is insanely fast. You can see Royal Guard was there. We didn't actually need him, but if for whatever reason we didn't proc War Master or Giant Slayer or whatever it was, and the boss slightly survived, Royal Guard comes in with a max nuke and finishes him off. Royal Guard would also, because he's AoE, he would finish off the Spiderlings, which also does a big chunk of damage to the boss. So yeah, again, if you don't, Sissia puts out decreased defense weaken. So if you got a different burn exploder that's not her, let's say you've got a Theodore, or maybe you've got a second Artak or something like that, you have to work it out so that between the 2 burn exploders and Royal Guard that they would kill the Spiderlings. Honestly, it should be pretty easy to do, but it's just something to be aware of, okay? The Spiderlings go pretty low just from the burns exploding, and then Royal Guard finish them off. But bang, 4 turns, beautiful. So that's what Newt can do for you. Can you do it with Cold Heart? You can, but Royal Guard would need to take a turn, right? You wouldn't have enough damage to kill the boss that quickly. So not super important, but still best in slot, basically. Extremely good, so that's insane. For Fire Knight... So I haven't quite bothered to upgrade this team for stage 10, but it's the same affinity, and broadly speaking, it should work. I would just need to go in and re-gear. So here we go. We've got a relatively fairly accessible-ish team with Newt. We have Karl the Scourge. He is coming in, obviously, from the clan shop, so everyone can get him. And then Rhonda was a login reward, so anyone that's at the point of doing Fire Knight hard at time of recording will have him as well. Then we have an epic ally attack in Farrakhan the Fat. Lenathril, a previous fusion, would be better, but I didn't actually do that fusion, and I've got regrets now. I even have a 6-star Lenathril soul. I can't use it. And then we have Lanicus the Chosen for ally attacks. Now, Lanicus doesn't bring in every ally for the ally attack, so that can go wrong, but she does bring us increase attack, which is quite nice. You could use Kreela instead. Again, you could use another Farrakhan, another Lenathril, whatever. I'm sure they would all work pretty much just fine. You can see on the waves, Newt's doing some alright damage, and he's also, again, freezing these enemies with his A1. But I mean, look at that. We had one resist right there, but look at that. He pushes the turn meter back so much. It makes these waves so much easier, and he freezes them. When he depletes their turn meter, he lands the freeze. And just between Karl doing freezes and Newt, we're able to kind of rip through. I'll actually show you the setup for this. I had to tinker a little bit, and it's going to vary depending on your speeds. But the setup is going to vary quite a lot. Now, what makes Newt so good? What makes him by far the best freeze champion for this, like blowing Gory, blowing Karl out of the water, is that his A1 is 100% chances to freeze. Obviously, there's always a 397%. There's always a 3% chance it gets resisted. But because it is an A1, it works perfectly with ally attacks. And we actually have Newt in the final position on the team. So we got a little bit unlucky there, busting it down, but we should still get it down. We push the turn meter back a little bit. Karl is going to land the freeze. Going to get this in. Newt goes in with not his A1. I have him set up with his A2 because I'm being greedy. Hopefully that won't catch us out. There we go. And look at that turn meter push back. The turn meter's just gone. So we actually had Newt open with his A3 to make sure that, that would be, he won't have that up quite yet until we get the turn meter down. And look at that. Newt, with that A1, the ally attacks, he's got the turn meter down basically to 0, which is just insane. We've got decreased defense and weaken up now at this point. We're just going to wait for Blessed Bash. Let's wait. This is the moment of truth, the moment of beauty. Rhonda is in for damage. She does pretty decent single target damage, of course, and she has a triple hit A1. So again, with these ally attacks, she's really good at taking in the shield. Here it goes. Boom, boom, boom. 3 hits for 400k plus some Giant Slayer procs. Rhonda A1 going in for some good measure. Newt's depleted the turn meter again. And it's not the fastest farm in the world, but this team should be fairly doable for nearly all of you. You can see the best time I got was 243, 63 turns. So there's lots of variants you can use. I tried it with Crew Traxa as well as Rhonda, and that works great. Again, the reason that Karl and Newt are at the back of the order here is that for the ally attacks, right? That when the shield goes down from the ally attacks, that Newt is actually going to be landing the freezes with his A1. So there's kind of there's a bit of play here happening with where you position people in the team. And you can see Newt's really doing nearly all the damage. Rhonda's damage also pretty good too. She is definitely adding a lot of damage. So actually, let me show you, first of all, how I built these other champions. Recently used first. Cool. So if you wanted to see the Royal Guard who didn't do anything, these are his stats and his masteries. Artak with these masteries and these stats. Sisya with these stats and these masteries. Drang with these masteries, and he's missing a helmet because we don't want to be too quick. And then obviously Newt in that team. So there you go, that was that team. Then we had Farrakhan in this team. He's coming in 250 speed, want to be faster than the boss. No masteries actually, because I forgot. Newt, again, we've seen Newt a million times at this point, but we can't get over how good he is. We've got Lanicus with these masteries and these stats. Again, you want to be faster than the boss. And Rhonda, decent damage, nothing too crazy here. Some of my worst Savage gear, I would say. And she does have Helm Smasher. Give her Giant Slayer if you wanted. And then Karl, he is coming in with again, Helm Smasher, and some sort of random gear. To make this team work for stage 25, or excuse me, for stage 10 hard, for the hardest version of hard, could this team work? Yes, I believe it certainly could, but you would want more speed. Like your Carl would want to be probably above 250. Rhonda might want to be close to that as well. Nice thing about Lanicus, she does give you turn meter 30% with her A2, so that might give you some leeway. And you might need to, for example, not let Newt do his A2 against the boss. He might just have to A1, because you're going to need to maximize the turn meter pushback on stage 10, because the boss is just so ridiculously fast, okay? But I think the concept of the team absolutely could work. You just need to re-gear it. That's just not that interesting, to be honest. For me, I just don't really care. Like, someone else is going to go and do it within a couple of days of this going live, and I'm just going to copy them. So it's not super fun for me to re-gear everyone and try to figure it out for myself. There's plenty of other people that love that. So yeah, for the team setup for this Fire Knight, the main thing I wanted to show you was that how insanely good Newt is, to see the damage output, but also to see how powerful that A1 is against the boss. It's insane for turn meter control, and also brilliant for controlling the waves. But Rhonda, she is just set up like this. So we'll open with her A1 and then sort of priority 1 phase rush, I suppose. Lanicus will open with Companions of Fate on both waves, but turn it off, and then number 1 on the boss. Farrakhan, he's going to just open with Beatdown on wave 1, not use it on wave 2, and use it on the boss. Your Carl's a bit complicated. He's going to open with Glaciate on wave 1. He's going to open with Blizzard Rider on wave 2. And then he's going to priority 1 Blizzard Rider on wave 3. So the idea is he'll get it off once, but only once against wave 2, and it'll be back off cooldown when we come to the boss. And because he is the slowest, he'll actually use it as the first thing when the shield goes down. To get to most importantly, the reason is you want to get that decreased speed up on the boss. Newt, open but not use, is A2. Just uses A2 as he wants on wave 2. And then open with Blessed Bash on the boss. If you're having trouble and he's not doing his A1 properly and the boss is taking turns, you could totally just turn off Fury of the King. It's just going to make it slightly faster because of the weaken, but it's not a big deal. So yeah, you can do it as you wish. I found I was leaving it on, but it's not a big deal either way. And that is how it goes for Fire Knight Hard. That's that. So he's insane. He is probably the best champion. And like I said, yeah, I mean, probably a couple of Newts. Like, if I could replace your Carl with another Newt, that would be really good. Or replace Rhonda with another Newt, that would be even better. I think this boss is going to be, like, he's so broken for this boss. It's actually insane. But even just one of them, I think even Fire Knight 10 is going to be doable actually pretty easily. It's just funny. Like, the freeze strategy is literally just the Newt strategy. You know, your Carl is okay. Creodan, New Epic is okay to go in there, but it's really all about Newt, to be honest. Okay, so that was that. Next up, let's go in and let's see him in some Hydra. So what I have right here, let's go into it. So what I did was I took, basically, I've shown you this team before in my Missionaki video I did very recently. And this is the sort of team that I'm using at the moment myself for Nightmare Hydra. So we have a Missionaki and Provoke set in the lead. We have a Sifi the Lost Bride to heal us and boost us up. I guess she's actually quite replaceable with any sort of good, any good sort of reviver for Hydra. Probably even some of the epic ones would work. Like a Godseeker and Eerie would probably work fine. We've got Krisk in there to Mischief tank and bring us Provokes. We actually have Archbishop Pinthroy for this rotation. I normally use Ugo. We are using Archbishop Pinthroy here, though, to make sure we get the block buffs onto the Head of Wrath. It's just, this is, I think, the one rotation where Ugo is not the best. Then we've got a Shamael to make the fears a non-issue. And we have a Royal Guard for some damage to duplicate some of that damage Missionaki's putting out with Hex. So, fairly straightforward team in the sense that I've shown it before. I don't think there's too much to talk about. We've got good uptime with increased defense thanks to Archbishop Pinthroy and the Sifi. And that's sort of it. I'd say one thing about this team, we're going to replace Royal Guard with Newt. Royal Guard does bring us a decent chunk of decreased speed debuff, because the only other source of decreased speed debuff with this team is Krisk's A1, and Krisk doesn't do his A1 very often. So that is something. Royal Guard is going to make it more consistent with the decreased speed. So that's a really nice bit of utility that he does bring in. And obviously there's lots of variations you could use for this team. It's not the best possible team ever, but this is a very, very solid nightmare team that works beautifully on full auto. You get good luck and you get good provoke set procs from Mishinaki, and like you're going to do crazy damage. But yeah, you can sort of get a bit of a gist for it. I think one interesting thing, I think if we come back, so I think Royal Guard's going to do a slam around about here, I think. If I checked this before recording, I think around here. So let me see. 3.4 million slam, 4.5. So 3.4 to 4.5. He did about 1.1 million. I think he didn't weak hit there, but yeah, I think he didn't weak hit with that. I think he got about 250 to 300k hits, or sorry, 4 of those. So it should be non-weak hits, but it does a good chunk of damage, right? Good chunk of damage at Royal Guard. And this team, I stopped it after the 1 key, but it could obviously go further. So this team right here, we were coming up at about 18 minutes, full auto for the 1 key, about 100 turns, and we get the 1 key. So that's how long it took. Again, about 18 minutes, 102 turns or so. I stopped it actually at 37 million, and boom, there we are, 37 million. And you can see Mishinaki, 16 million damage. He's been boosted by Shamail, doing a bit more. Royal Guard with 12 million. This is a 4-star awakened Royal Guard, by the way. And yeah, the others are doing a little bit, but it's mostly really the Mishinaki Royal Guard. There's always someone doing damage being boosted by Shamail, and it works pretty well. Let's jump over here and let's watch the start of the run with Mr. Newt. So how did this one work? We basically put in Newt, and that's it. We took Royal Guard out, we put Newt in. So what do we get? Well, there we actually look at now. Before I talk about what we get, let me show you one problem I did run into. So on this team, we do have Shamail actually built with high resistance, and obviously Krisk is mischief tanking as well. However, because Newt does give himself, you can see the damage right there. Did you see that damage? Did you see that damage? That was like 1.1 million damage right there. That was the same as the Royal Guard AoE slam from Newt's single target slam. Pretty cool. But because Newt gives himself counterattack, he will make himself a target for mischief. And it's just kind of awkward. So I did get buff stolen in this run. So that is really something to watch out for. If you are building Newt just for Hydra, you are probably not actually going to need that much crit damage because he brings weaken. So you're going to have, I hope you're going to have, decreased defense and weaken out, which means he will actually hit very hard without that much crit damage. So if you're using him just for Hydra, or maybe even this is the way to use him in general, it might be worthwhile building him with like 400, 500 resistance if possible. I know it's crazy. It's a ton. Like right there, you see their stuff gets stolen, and it's going to get spread around. Now, Affinity's a bit wonky on this rotation because we've got, Archbishop Pinthroy, he's weak Affinity, but like everything's getting stolen and spread around. We're going to be fine with this team because this team is insane, but as you can see, it is a problem. It's something to watch out for. Big time, it's something to watch out for. So yeah, that's an issue, right? And that all comes off of Newt not having enough resistance. So it's definitely a concern. 100% it's a concern. But if you can get around that, he really pays off. So what did he bring? Look at this. Bang, bang, bang. 4.2 million up to 5.5. That's a crazy amount of damage. It's so much damage. How is he hitting so hard? How is it outdoing Royal Guard so much? Well, I think part of it is very simple, right? Because it's a single target hit, you are not going to have any affinity issues. Oh, I was actually targeting heads with this run, actually. Just for, I think for both runs, actually, I targeted heads when they devoured champions, just to break them out more quickly. I forgot I did that, actually, to be honest with you. My bad. I gave fake news at the start. Because he's single target hits, right? So long as you're targeting a head, which is the right affinity, that he's not going to weak hit, Royal Guard, he's doing an AoE, so he will weak hit sometimes, because there's probably going to be 1 or 2 heads that are bad affinity. He's going to get some weak hits that will cost him damage. Newt, unless you're targeting a head that's devoured one of your champions and you're going to risk weak hits then, is generally speaking not going to weak hit. He's going to have 3 normal crits, and therefore he's going to do max damage basically every single time, which is big. Very, very big, in fact. So that's really, really strong for his max HP nuke. On top of that, when you combo it with Hex, which especially with the Cursed set, now giving you a 50% chance per hit to apply Hex, something I think you're going to want to have Hex in every single Hydra team moving into the Hydra Clash, 100%. And you can see this run's going a bit wonky as well, guys, and we're still going to be slamming out the damage. Here he goes. Boom, boom, boom. Massive damage. Oh my god, the damage meter. Yeah, single target attacks through Hex, it duplicates 10% of the damage. So that big hit he's doing with that Blessed Bash, it is really translating through in a very meaningful way. On top of also, decreasing their defense a little bit permanently. Obviously, I think that goes away whenever the head respawns, but nonetheless, it's a pretty nice way to get a bit of extra bang for your buck and make everyone else hit a little bit harder afterwards as well, which is pretty cool. So he's bringing a lot. On top of that, he brings it AoE weaken. He brings the AoE decrease attack as well. In this team, we've got tons of decrease attack. And, a lot of you will have Artak as well, who's already bringing you a top tier decrease attack for Hydra. So the Newt one is maybe not as important, but it's still a nice thing to have. But the AoE weaken is pretty cool. It's going to make him a good combo with Michinaki, who doesn't have weaken. It's going to make him a good combo with Ugo, who's got decreased defense but no weaken. He's going to slot in very well to a lot of teams. Very, very well. That weaken is going to up all of your damage quite a bit too. So all this stuff adds together. But yeah, his only downside, he has a long cooldown on Blessed Bash. But man, look at that damage. Oh man, he hits so hard. It does so much. Yeah, you get an idea for how the run works. Let's skip ahead. Let's see how we did in terms of the damage overall. So coming up here, we're about 19 minutes in. This time it's been a slightly longer run. 96 turns on the boss. So we are basically a little bit lower on the turn count, a little bit lower on the time taken, a bit of randomness. So it's actually a very similar performance overall to the Royal Guard. And I think seeing as things were going a bit wrong as well, we had some bad luck there at the start. It's clearly working out pretty well. But I mean, look at that. Just destroys him. I had to end the battle quick. We accidentally blasted past too quickly. Blasted past the 37 million to the 38 million. I couldn't stop it fast enough. But as you can see from this time around, Michinaki had 13.8 million. Newt had 14.6 million. Thought that was really interesting. So whereas Michinaki was a few million ahead of Royal Guard, Newt actually came in slightly ahead of Michinaki. This is obviously going to vary depending on your luck, depending on the affinities of heads. Like Michinaki was dead for a little bit there at the part that we saw. So there's going to be a lot of, variety based off of that. But here's the thing. Is Newt on a similar level as like Royal Guard, as Husk, as Michinaki, as these really good Hydra damage dealers? The answer is yes, he is. He's on a very similar level if you can play around the counterattack thing, which is going to mess you up. And it might mean that you have to build resistance on him. We will find out, I guess, pretty soon. But yeah, I would recommend probably trying to build resistance on him if you are endgame. I think it might be worthwhile. Or possibly slotting him into teams with increased resistance or decreased accuracy in there could be good. I do think he's a very good combo with Michinaki. You got the decreased defense from Michinaki. You've got the Hex from Michinaki, and those are the two things that Newt really wants. Decreased defense and Hex, perfect. Newt is bringing in the weaken, which is nice for Michinaki. They're two different affinities, which is nice for the decreased attack as well. They're a good combo. I think this team right here is a very solid team. Like I said, you can switch in Ugo depending on the rotations, but you could switch out Sifi for another reviver. It's all going to be good. Krisk, you could swap for another Mischief tank. We're actually plenty tanky in this team. It's a very tanky team. You don't actually need Krisk. You can switch him out for a different Mischief tank and make it work. Skull Lord Vargal might be a decent option because we don't have Strengthen in this team. So Skull Lord will work really well, bringing you Provokes too. Maybe you could even switch Michinaki into Relentless if you got Skull Lord. Things to consider. Lots of things to consider. But Newt for Hydra, great news. He is extremely good. He's really, really good. Let me show you the faster way would be just to come in here rather than, well, actually, no, you want to see their masteries, don't you? So yeah, let me show you those masteries as well while we are here. So Chris, he's coming in. High resist accuracy, good speed and tanky stats, and these masteries. Sifi has these masteries. She's in stone skin and very fast. There you go. We had, who else was in the team? I've already forgotten. Archbishop Pinthroy, he was in there. Michinaki was in there too. So Michinaki, he's in a provoke set. I really like it. So decent speed. I like it to be a bit higher, but it's fine. And masteries are like this. By the way, on the test server, in case you're wondering, no area bonuses on the test server. So we've got no bonuses boosting any of the dungeons or Hydra or anything like that, right? So you don't need to worry about that. Archbishop Pinthroy, he's in Relentless. So he's just very fast. His accuracy is kind of low. If you were using him all the time, right, because he brings in increased accuracy, which is why his accuracy is low, you could potentially build the rest of the team around that a decent chunk. And you could therefore get more resistance built. That's sort of up to you. I wouldn't always be using Pinthroy. I feel like his affinity actually is not that good for most Hydra rotations. He's only good for a couple of them. Ugo is better for most of them. It's just the way they design the affinities is kind of funny. It caters to the epic, ironically. But that stuff could always change in the future. But look, it's something for you to know and to work out yourself. And then we had... I think it was this guy. Which one? 1 Star Awaken. Yeah, so it would be this guy. So it was this Shamael with War Master, and he is in Guardian and Fortitude. So he has a Blood Shield ring. He's got a little bit of speed, a little bit of damage. He's mostly there with some resistance and Blood Shield to be sort of a backup Mischief tank, just to help out with that, so that he can be targeted by Mischief a little bit and make it a bit cleaner. So it's a good idea. It's not going to fully protect Newt though, so it's something to consider. Newt, like I said, he could be a great option with a Blood Shield ring himself and building up his resistance. He does have good base resistance, so it is something to consider, right? Like, he does not need that much defense. You could drop his speed even potentially a little bit. You could even potentially drop his crit damage a little bit and knock that resistance up. I do think it's hard, but I'm just throwing it out there as something for you to be aware of. And you can see with your gear whether it's something that's feasible or not. Otherwise, definitely make sure you've got a good Mischief tank. But there you go. Newt, endgame. I think he's good in so many areas. Like, honestly, the champion only has really one weakness, which is that he's good everywhere. So how do you build him that's good for everywhere? This was my sort of generalist attempt for today. I thought it worked quite nicely. He is also, let's end on this. I don't have a proper team set up for the Phantom Shogun's Grove. I think they've actually changed it, but Stone Skin was bugged, so I don't think this is going to work. But with the Phantom Shogun's Grove, there's a chance that he redirects. Yeah, there we go. Thanks to the Ultimate Death Knight passive, it's only a 50% chance to work against bosses, so this is not reliable. But yeah, you can see like right there, it didn't redirect. But probably something like this with everyone in Stone Skin would work really well. So that would be my guess for this dungeon. You can see it's not quite working. The point I want to show you, though, is how hard Newt is hitting. He's absolutely ripping this boss apart with his move. So I think probably the way to do this very easily would be a Lydia with Stone Skin, 2 Cold Hearts, a Reset Champion, and Newt in Stone Skin. Decreased defense, weaken. Newt does 3 hits for 10% damage each. That's 30% boss HP. Each Cold Heart does another 10%. You've done half of the boss's health in max HP hits. You reset, and then they go again while still under Stone Skin. And that's going to be the easiest way to clear it. It's totally busted. And like I said, I don't know, it's a bit awkward. Like, putting Newt in Stone Skin is not ideal for Fire Knight or for Hydra, obviously. It's not bad, but it's not ideal. So yes, definitely he's going to be targeted by Mischief then on turn 1, you know. So stuff to consider. But just to throw it out there, again, they just bug fixed this today, so I haven't got around to doing it. I want to get this out. Thank you for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you did. This has been long enough. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.